At Camp Pendleton's quiet library, Marian Hale moved through the stacks like a ghost. 29 years old, 5'5", with brown hair always pulled back in a perfect bun. For 2 years, she had shelved books, helped Marines with research, and maintained the peaceful sanctuary that was the base library. Nobody questioned why the librarian moved with such precise, deliberate steps. Nobody wondered why her eyes constantly scanned room entrances and exits. They just saw a quiet woman doing her job. But Marian Hale was not just a librarian. The afternoon sun streamed through the library windows as Marian reached up to place a military history book on the top shelf. Her sleeve rode up slightly, revealing a thin white scar that ran along her wrist, a mark that told a story she had kept hidden from everyone at Camp Pendleton. 5 Marines lounged at a corner table, supposedly studying but mostly causing disruption with their loud whispers and crude jokes. Lance Corporal Silas Keaton, 22 years old, with the kind of arrogance that came from completing basic training and thinking he knew everything about military life. His crew followed his lead. Gideon Marsh, quiet but eager to impress his friends. Elias Thatcher, always ready to prove himself. Orson Tate, uncomfortable with confrontation but afraid to speak up. And Calder Boone, the newest member, trying to fit in. "Look at her," Silas said, nodding toward Marian. "Playing soldier with her little uniform and name tag. Bet she's never seen a day of real action in her life." Gideon snickered. Probably got that job because she couldn't handle real military work. Typical. Marian continued her work, appearing not to hear their comments while actually listening to every word. She had faced similar attitudes throughout her military career. Some people saw a woman in a support role and automatically assumed weakness. As closing time approached, the library emptied until only Marian and the 5 Marines remained. She should have asked them to leave, but something in their body language told her they weren't planning to go quietly. Silas stood up first. "Hey, librarian lady, we need to talk to you about something." Marian looked up from her desk, her expression calm and professional. "The library closes in 10 minutes. If you need research assistance, I can help you tomorrow." "Nah, this can't wait," Silas said, walking closer. The others followed, spreading out to surround her desk. "See, we've been watching you, acting all high and mighty like you're better than us real Marines." Marian's training kicked in as she assessed the situation. 5 men, all larger than her, positioning themselves to block her escape routes. Their aggressive postures and coordinated movement suggested this was planned intimidation. "I'm not sure what you mean," Marian said quietly, slowly standing from her chair. "I'm just here to do my job." Elias stepped forward. "Your job? Your job is to stay in your lane and show some respect to actual Marines who've earned their place here." What none of them noticed was how Marian's stance had shifted. Her weight balanced on the balls of her feet, her hands relaxed but ready, her eyes tracking each of their positions with the practiced awareness of someone trained for combat. Orson felt uncomfortable but continued with his friends. "Maybe you should consider transferring to a position more suitable for someone like you." Calder, trying to prove himself to the group, added, "Yeah, like the kitchen or laundry, somewhere you can't pretend to be something you're not." Marian remained perfectly still. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I suggest you all return to your barracks." Silas laughed and moved even closer. "We're not done talking to you yet. You need to learn your place around here." That's when he made his fatal mistake. Silas reached out to grab Marian's arm, intending to intimidate her further. As his hand closed around her wrist, his fingers pressed against the thin white scar hidden beneath her sleeve. The scar from a piece of shrapnel that had torn through her forearm during a classified force recon mission in Syria 3 years earlier. Marian's reaction was instantaneous and devastating. She grabbed Silas's extended wrist with her free hand while simultaneously stepping forward and driving her elbow into his solar plexus with surgical precision. The impact was perfectly placed, enough to incapacitate without causing permanent damage. Silas doubled over, gasping for breath, and completely out of the fight. Before the others could process what had happened, Marian continued her momentum. She spun Silas around and used him as a shield while she evaluated her remaining opponents. The entire sequence had taken less than 3 seconds. Gideon's street fighting instincts kicked in and he lunged forward. But Marian had been tracking his movement through her peripheral vision. She released Silas and pivoted to meet his attack. As he reached for her, she ducked under his grasping arms and swept his legs with a precise kick. His momentum carried him forward as his feet were knocked out from under him, sending him crashing into a bookshelf. Elias, realizing his friends were being systematically defeated, charged forward with his fists raised. Marian sidestepped his clumsy attack and grabbed his extended arm. Using his own momentum against him, she performed a perfect hip throw that sent him flying over her shoulder. He landed hard on the library floor, the impact knocking the wind out of him. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 15 seconds. 3 of the 5 Marines were on the ground or disabled, and the remaining 2 stood frozen in shock. Orson and Calder backed away with their hands raised, finally understanding they had made a catastrophic error in judgment. The library fell completely silent, except for the heavy breathing of the defeated Marines. Marian stood calmly in the center of the chaos, barely breathing hard, despite having just neutralized 3 attackers with techniques far beyond anything taught in basic Marine training. Sergeant Major Vernon Cross had been walking past the library when he heard the commotion. He pushed through the doors to find a scene that made him stop in his tracks. 3 Marines on the floor, 2 others backing away in surrender, and the base librarian standing over them with the controlled posture of someone with serious combat experience. "What exactly happened here?" Cross asked, though his experienced eye was already piecing together the story. Orson found his voice first. "Sergeant Major, we made a mistake. We thought she was just—" He trailed off, unable to explain how badly they had misjudged the quiet woman who spent her days among books and research materials. Cross looked at Marian, noting her calm demeanor and the precise way she had neutralized multiple threats without causing serious injury. Those weren't techniques learned in weekend self-defense classes. "Marian," he said carefully, "I think we need to have a conversation about your background." Marian met his gaze steadily. She knew her carefully maintained cover was about to be blown wide open. The 5 Marines who entered the library thinking they were confronting a weak civilian were learning a harsh lesson about assumptions, respect, and the dangerous mistake of underestimating someone based on their appearance. Because Marian Hale was not just a librarian. She was a former Force Reconnaissance Marine with 3 combat deployments and specialized training that saved lives in some of the most dangerous places on Earth. And she had just reminded 5 cocky young Marines that warriors come in many forms.